And the rabbit that is always there when I'm walking by. He ain't, oh, you moving now. You weren't moving before. Well, anyways, good morning. It is 7:05, and I'm doing my morning walk. Um, and with this morning walk, I have so many thoughts that I be wanting to talk to people about, but a lot of people can't handle the conversations that I be wanting to start. Um, Only a couple of years ago, I was really into politics, like really, really, really into politics. Um, and I wasn't trying to tell people how to vote, but I was telling people to do their research on the Democratic Party. Do your research on the Republican Party. There's so many other parties like the Rainbow Party, the Tea Party, and I'm not even kidding. There's one literally called the Pizza Party, um, in Massachusetts. I don't know if it's nationwide, but there is a thing called the Pizza Party. Sorry, I had to catch my breath because I'm walking up a hill. But anyways, there's a lot of political parties that a lot of people aren't aware of. The major one, the ones that get to the front line, the ones that get to be the presidential campaigns and the governor campaign and mayors, those are really just the Republican and Democrat. And growing up, I'm 42 right now. Growing up, I was told um, that the Republican Party was based off of rich white people. The Democratic Party was for poor black people. Now you notice there was no other ethnicities involved. There was no Asians, there were no Hispanics, there were no people from India, Africa, whatever. It was just black, white, rich, poor. So at 18 years old, I was in high school, and I'll say a little bit before I turned 18. I was in high school, and John Kerry, I forgot what he was. I think he was a U.S. Senator for Massachusetts, but he came to my high school in Dorchester, Massachusetts, and I knew at that point I'm not voting Democrat. It wasn't because he was an old white man, because he was old. He was old even back then. I don't know what he's doing now, but he was old. But I knew back then I wasn't voting for a Democrat. And I don't think I was scared to tell people at that time. I was 18, so I wasn't really scared. I was going to a lot of campaign, debates. I would really pay attention to what each party member was saying. And I would realize that they were lying. The only thing I never understood about politicians and when they're running for office, or even when they're in the office, whatever seat that they're in, is foreign policy. I never really understood what that meant. I knew foreign meant not from here, but I never knew what that meant. So I didn't know what they were talking about. Every time I would hear foreign policy, I never really paid attention to that. Now I know. You're really just helping people outside of the U.S. Anyone. Not all the countries, but some of the countries. So I was voting a Republican Party member for various things, whether it was presidential, governor. There weren't too many city councilors in Boston running as a Republican or representing the Republican Party. But the reason why I didn't want to vote for a Democrat was because most of the time they're very wishy-washy. They say one thing and do another. They don't really practice what they preach. They give you half answers, you ask them a question, they don't really answer it. And I was noticing this at 18. So teenagers do pay attention. Y'all call them kids, but teenagers do pay attention. If you sit down and talk to them, they'll tell you what's on their mind. I was telling my mom about Bush. Okay, I was telling my mom about the governor, Mitt Romney. I was telling her about John Kerry. Some of these people now, I wouldn't care to vote for them ever again. Republican, green tea, all of them. I wouldn't care to vote for them now. But back then, you couldn't tell me to not vote for a Republican, because that's what I would do. Occasionally, I would vote for a Democrat because they would push something that I respected, and other times it was just always a Republican. Didn't care who the person was. I would just vote for them. And but for years, society will make you believe that copper-colored people, who you know as Black Americans, who you know as African Americans, were told to vote Democrat. And there's a little story to that, because it goes, y'all want to call it slavery, I just call it the past. It had nothing to do with slavery. Absolutely nothing to do with slavery. So I can't say that this applied everywhere to the United States, but at one point in time, it always goes back to Indians. Whether you like it or not, it always goes back to being an Indian. Indians couldn't vote. They couldn't vote because they thought our people were simple-minded. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just easy. You tell us to do something, we would do it. And that's how it was in the past. And also, Indians thought that if they became part of the European society of the government, for the government, things will, they would make their life better, and that's not what happened. But what it was a lot of Indians became part of the Republican Party. I'm trying to lose weight, so I keep walking up hills. So you're gonna hear little breaks. But so Indians, when they first started voting, they were voting as Republican. And not all of them were Indians. Not all of them were Indians. Not all Republicans were American. A lot of them were from Europe. But a lot of them looked like the Indians, if that makes sense. And I already told y'all who the Indians were and still are to this day. It ain't never changed. Never changed. But So, in order for Indians to vote, Amerindians, Creeks, Wampanoags, Mashpee, Pequot, Massapoac, they had to reclassify themselves or get reclassified. There was a lot of reclassification going, meaning they had to change up of who they were originally to something else. And what it was Negro, colored, black. Things changed. We were already voting Republican, and it stopped. I don't know when, but it stopped fairly early. Probably like around the 30s, 40s, it stopped. There were still, melanated people voting as Republican. And there still is melanated people voting as Republican. But no one talks about that. We're supposed to just be dumbed down and vote this way because our grandparents told us to vote this way and keep moving. Have faith in the Democratic Party. And as you get older, you realize that voting don't do anything. And I think our people knew that a long time ago, that it didn't do anything. It destroyed the land of the free. And it later got turned into the land of slavery. Now, there was slavery going on everywhere, not just America, but Africa, the continent, had their own form of slavery. Asia had their own form of slavery. I don't know too much about Australia. I haven't really dug into their history, but they know who they are. Certain parts of Europe, definitely Britain and England, those of the UK, United Kingdom, such as Ireland, Scotland, they were being enslaved over there too. So at some point things change. You get older and you realize that voting don't do anything. And these are the kind of conversations I want to have with people, but you can't. Try to have a conversation with people a couple of years ago about Trump. No, what he's doing right now. This man has, at this point, I'm not voting anymore. So me and my husband just decided we ain't gonna vote anymore, because what's the point? Trump was doing things when he first got into office, and he was doing things for both white and black, whatever you want to call it. He didn't discriminate. Y'all say this man is racist, and if he is, he ain't gonna tell you. That man only cares about green dollars. That's it, green money. He don't care about anyone else. Now, at times, he'll say some dumb stuff, just like Biden. Biden has said some dumb stuff. Bush has said some dumb stuff. Obama has said some dumb, and people still like them. People still vote for them. People still think that they're great men of this country. But a lot of them have a past, and a lot of them don't really care to actually help the United States citizens at all. Trump knows his family is from Europe, Germany, and Scotland. I think he's a second generation United States citizen. His father was born here, but his grandfather was not. His mother was born in Scotland. So, these are things you find out when you do research on people. See what's good, what's good for your family. When you vote for somebody, you want to know their background. And I found out his background just by researching. And I learned a lot about him. And what I realized is that it don't matter who you vote for. If you believe that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, go ahead and vote for them. But I don't think it's necessary anymore. They tell you that voting does something. It helps the country out, and it don't. Now, there's some people who really do what they say they're going to do, but most of the time they're not. Most of the time they're not. I know I voted for Trump because there was a couple of things he said he was going to do when he got into office this second time. And he was saying it the second time he was running, but they didn't want him in office. They wanted Biden. So this is a conversation I want to have with people. I want to talk about how do we make sure we're eating actual real food. Can't really talk to people about that. No one wants to talk about that. No one. You know, some people just say, you know what? It is what it is, Chanel. You just gotta deal with it. We've been eating fake food for a very long time. So it is what it is. But I'm the type of person that you could say, yeah, we've been eating fake food for a very long time. And does that make it okay to keep going? Those people whose family been in the United States for over 400 plus years, and you know who you are, know that your family wasn't eating fake food. Y'all always like to say, oh, chitlins is slave food. It's not. It's not. I don't know where that came from, but someone passed that down and said it was slave food. And so in your mind, slave means poor black people. But if you take the time to research and just look up things, you might have to go to the library. You might actually have to sit down and talk to somebody. But most of the stuff you're going to find out is not true. Chitlins was not slave food. Because why would you as a black American know that something was made for so-called slaves? Why would you eat it? Why would you eat it? So you have our families making this slave food and then still saying it's good. Or we ate like this because this is what the white people just threw. They just treated us like dogs, and they treated each other like dogs back then. There's multiple stories of white people, Europeans, being treated like dogs in the past. But y'all want to focus on how people treated us. And that's fine. You can, live like that. Think like that. I can't, because I know my people are great. I know they come from great people. So I did research on chitlins, and I found out that it was considered a delicacy, almost like a very expensive main dish, but it was slave food. Chitlins is part of the pig's body, as is pig ears, as is pig feet, pig tongue, pig nose. People eat all of the pig, but I know people who will eat the whole pig body. And you can't tell them that you're eating slave food. So, again, this is something that I want to talk to my people about, but nope. They want to go off the narrative that they're eating slave food. The United States President George Washington would go to Barbados every so often. He would go to Barbados, get treated like a king, but he would have West Indian friends who would cook him chitlins. And they weren't calling it chitlins. Chitlins is the southern name for it. They were calling it trout. And they probably had an accent to it, so it's probably pronounced differently in the islands. But they weren't calling it slave food. If you ask a West Indian now, do you guys eat pig intestines? And they're going to be like, yeah. There are so many narratives about the Black American culture that people don't want to do their research on. And these are conversations that I'm just going to bring to YouTube. So again, once when my children get older and they want to know how I felt about certain things, they can hear about it here. Or even anyone now. You can't sit here and say that Chanel did not try to talk to you about these conversations. You know, I had, and I'm not afraid to admit it, there was a so-called white woman who was the one that told me that Black Americans were Republicans first. She doesn't understand why they've been voting Democrat, or we've been voting Democrat. And so I had to let her know, well, I've been voting Republican, but I didn't know that Black Americans were Republican. So I looked it up. And this is like 5, 6 years ago. So there's people who knew about this before 5, 6 years ago. There were people who knew that Black Americans were Republican. Martin Luther King's parents were Republican. They voted for Republican Party people. Martin went another way. He was told to convince the Black Americans to vote this way. He wasn't the only one. You had people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. What's his name? I forgot his name. He's a Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson. He was telling Black Americans to vote Democrat. And I always wondered if these people knew that Black Americans were Republican a long time ago. But, wait, did I say Jackie Robinson? Jackie Robinson, yeah, he was telling Black people to vote Democrat, not Republican. And this was like in the 60s. So they had to have known that 20, 30 years before, Black people were voting another way. Once you start doing research, you don't really trust too much what the news says about your people, because you know they paint us as animals. It's very disheartening. And actually a lot of the stuff that the media says about us is very disrespectful, because they think that we don't know anything. And we know a lot. But, you know, you live and you learn and you study and you want to pass it on to people. And sometimes people listen and sometimes they don't. But yeah, that was it. I just came on here to once again give y'all my walking thoughts. And try this again tomorrow morning. Do this again tomorrow morning. And give y'all another piece of my mind. Bye.